All right, here we are. Thank you everyone for hopping on for this week's Media Zoom with Navy head coach Joe Amplo. We'll go ahead and get started with Scott Wyckoff.
Hey, Coach, what's the focus been this week getting ready for Friday's game for Bucknell?
As good as Bucknell is, and I think they're excellent, the focus has to be on us. We don't think we performed like a Navy team. Certainly, the success that we've shown and the good moments we've had this year, I don't think showed itself consistently enough against Loyola last week. So we've got to get back to who we are and what we need to be, and playing with that emotion and energy and connectivity that we've seen in the spurts where we've been really good this year.
How frustrating is it for both you and the players knowing that this team can reach a level and play at a top level, but in games missing the mark here and there and coming up short?
Yeah, it's frustrating for me as the leader of this. Is I just haven't found that consistency, for a while here. It's something that I've got to look at. Certainly a broader view once the season is over, but just internally here quickly as we're trying to make something out of this and make a run at this. I think getting back to who we are and what we need to do in terms of how we play and certainly what we stand for, I think is the most important thing in the short term. That's what we can focus on now, and then in the future there'll be some things that we have to think about as a staff what we're doing to help with that consistency.
How important is the leadership in the room, the guys that have been through some adversity through their careers and have known what it's taken to get to the other end to lead your younger guys who might not have experienced that before?
Yeah, I think it's everything, Scott. I mean, look, everybody points to the coaches, and as they should, that it's our job to motivate these players and put them in position to be successful. But realistically, it's a player's game, and they have to share a large burden of that responsibility. It's frustrating as a coach when you get 14 tries at this to put the jerseys on and turn the lights on with the refs out there, and you get this sense that there's a lack of intensity or focus. We take that responsibility as the coach and as a staff, but the players, I hope they feel that burden of responsibility too, and disappointment that we felt on Friday night.
Thanks, Coach.
Wags.
Joe, so I hate to go back to the Loyola game, but just out of, and this isn't for anything I'm writing, this is just me and you talking to Cure. How did you think that game changed? You came out so well. You were playing really well offensively. You're moving the ball. You were beating their zone. You scored 5 goals in a fairly short span. Now Charlie says they made adjustments. They saw something you were doing. Were apparently keeping people below the goal line. He thought that was pulling their zone apart. So he says they made adjustments. Did you feel like you all didn't adjust to their adjustments, or what, in your view, what changed? Because obviously, offensively, you did not score some goal. I don't know what the number is, but you had a lengthy drought.
Yeah, we did, and I think the first quarter. I mean, they were man the first 2 possessions, and we got them quickly with that. And then when they flipped to the zone, we showed them a look that we had picked up on film from a previous game they played that worked. And then as that game went on, just specifically offensively, that look wasn't there because they made a nice adjustment, and we switched. We went into 2 different looks offensively with the zone and didn't hit any shots. The goalie made a couple of saves, but we threw 3 different things at them in the zone. There was also 1 or 2 transition opportunities where I just think Henry Tolker misses a doorstep shot where AJ Marsh makes a beautiful pass to him. It's plays like that when you're playing a team like Loyola who's going to play zone, it's going to be hard to come by. There's going to be stretches of time where the goalie's going to make a save, they're going to make a check. It's going to be a frustrating kind of in the box experience. We certainly scored enough early to give cushion. I think really where the game shifted was defensively. We probably played the worst game in my time here overall. They were 50% in the box. They were 12 for 22, a little bit over 50% in terms of their efficiency. And that's something that you can't have when you're playing a team that is going to frustrate you on the offensive end. I felt like when it was 5-2, if we could have gotten one more stop, or at least a stop or two in that first quarter, then we got a chance. And also in that stretch, Mac Haley gets a 4-yard shot right-handed in front of their goalie and it hits his butt end. If that goes in, that's their third zone possession and we score, and maybe you just break them enough that we get some confidence and they don't. So yeah, Charlie made some nice adjustments. I thought we actually adjusted well. We just didn't execute to finality, with the putting the ball in the cage. I think going back, looking at the film, we probably could have had some more looks that gave us some inside presence. We had scouted that they were going to put some pressure on us at X. So we thought that the inside would be tough to get from the bottom up. But looking back on film, it looked like it would have been a little bit more open than we had thought. So that's something that if we play a team that's going to play like that again, we may look at. But I didn't feel like it was an adjustment that stifled us. I felt like it was execution, because I do think with what we did from an adjustment standpoint put us in position to have a chance, and we didn't execute. But mostly the disappointing thing, Wags, was defensively. We couldn't guard the ball, and we were so disconnected off the ball that I'm really concerned about that, truthfully.
So is the part of that the picking game? I mean, they shouldn't be able to expose you in the picking game, but I mean, there was half a dozen times that Matthew Minikis ended up with a shorty, which you
Yeah.
don't. That's a poor matchup, and I don't know what your philosophy is on picking. Fight through it, go over it, but
I mean, look, teams are great at picking, and if you really want to get a matchup, you're really probably going to get it. They do a number of different things off the ball that they'll get the switches, and there's two philosophies. If you're going to have to slide, and you're going to have someone who's going to help that dodger, then it's going to be really hard to go with your men off the ball. You've got to play how we play it, in my opinion, which is kind of a little bit of a zone concept. And that's going to threaten you with getting a matchup switch with number 7. We tried to adjust a little bit, but he's a good player and they had good schemes. But quite frankly, there were two of their offensive possessions where we watched it yesterday with the team. The Navy players don't even touch the offensive players for Loyola, not one time in 2 possessions. So I don't care if you're getting a matchup switch or not. We've traditionally been very good with our short sticks going in, and we worry less about matchups because we feel confident in their ability. But Friday night, for whatever reason, that didn't show up. So an outsider and certainly their scheme, they can say, yeah, we tried to get matchup switches, but truthfully, that happens all year long for us. It's the way we play defense, and we've always been better than good at it. And we've got to trust that. We're not going to change our scheme in game drastically. That would be a paradigm shift in how we play defense. And quite frankly, it probably would not have worked out because we just didn't have it on the defensive end on Friday night. We thought about going zone, and I made the decision not to because I didn't feel like Dan was seeing the ball enough. So I tried to pull the energy out of these guys and get them to play more intense and deliberate defensively. That was the strategy that I went towards, to try and just let's be better at what we do. And looking back, maybe we should have tried the zone, and who knows, that may have thrown them off a little bit. But I just believed in our guys that they were going to be able to flip a switch, and they didn't.
well, it's obviously the most disappointing stretch was there in the fourth quarter. They scored 5 goals in the span of 6 minutes, and I thought at a couple instances, as you mentioned, it just looked like things were disorganized. The guys
Yeah,
just
I
weren't
mean,
matched up.
there's one play. It's 11-10. I obviously we watch the film, and usually Monday's my day to watch it with the team. I watched it as soon as I got home on Friday night. And in the fourth quarter, we make it 11-10. And there's a play in our defensive end, where 2 of our seniors, they're in great position off the ball, but they miscommunicate. I mean, just a fatal mistake. And then both of them approach out to a shooter. And as that shooter's winding up, they get out of the way. They don't break down at the head of the stick. They don't try and get in the way of it. And to me, that's the story of the game. It's that one miscommunication that we very rarely do off the ball. We've been so good with that all year long. And then you have a chance to make a play in that moment when it's 11-10, and we didn't, and if we make that play, maybe there's some energy and there's some momentum that we're still carrying from that comeback that we had, and we have a chance. But they score it there, and that kind of broke our backs a little bit. And that really was the story of the game for me, that play right there.
Well, I'll pass it back over to Scott.
Okay.
Coach, I know Dan's faced a lot of shots in the last 5 games. How's he responded, and how do you work that in practice as you prepare for a game like this against Bucknell? It's so important, and trying to get him into the right frame of mind.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a competitor. He's been mostly very consistent. The week before the Army game, he didn't see one shot in practice and had one of his best games of his career. So, but our strategy during the week is to make sure he sees live shots up until about midway through Thursday, and then Friday he's going to see some, but not many. We have a routine that we go through each week that he likes, and he's asked us throughout his career to adjust it based on his needs. He'll see certain shots that we think we're going to give up based on the offense we're seeing, whether it's a low wing, whether it's coming around the cage, whether it's specific shooters, how their tendencies are. So he gets more live reps with that. And then truly we'll put him under what we call the firing squad on Thursday. It's about a 5 to 7 minute time when it's just shooters and Dan, and he is seeing a barrage of shots. And that really gets him clued into game speed, probably more than game speed, truthfully, because a lot of it is, set time and room on the run with no defender out there. And that's more of a confidence moment for him, that he's probably not going to see a tougher shot than those in the game, consistently. So, it's a pretty concrete routine. And again, we'll adjust based on what we'll see this week or each week. And this week we're going to see a firing squad. These kids, they got a bunch of guys who can hammer it and bring it from all different places.
And you talked about the communication issues. Is that almost totally a mental thing? I mean, physically, the guys know where to go, know what to do, but is that just almost a mental thing that you've got to deal with off the field before practice, after practice?
Yeah, I mean, look, last week wasn't a great week of practice for us. We saw it. We saw clues of it. We tried everything we could to try and bring that focus and attention back to where we thought it had been the previous few weeks. Our warm-up during the game, before the game, was terrible. So we saw signs of it. But, there's only so much you can do sometimes as a coach. And unfortunately, that's where I say the players have to bear some responsibility for it. At this point of the year, as I told them, it's just completely unacceptable for that to happen. If you get beat by a team that out executes you and you're doing things right, then you tip your cap. I think that's what we saw the week before. One team just made more plays than us down the stretch. In this game, Loyola certainly played great, deserved to win, but I don't think we were at our best from a defensive standpoint, from a mental area. And you're absolutely right, Scott. There was nothing physical, and we're banged up, but everybody's banged up. Guys were not 100%, but who is at this time of year, and that would just be an excuse if I used that. We weren't ready to play.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you, Scott.
Coach, can you talk a little bit? Bucknell kind of has a 1-2 punch with Connor Davis and Michael Meyer. One's their scorer, one's their feeder. Can you compare at all those two players to some of the guys that we've seen within the league?
Yeah, Michael Meyer reminds me of the Riley Sullivan kid a lot from Lafayette. He's an excellent player. We tried to recruit him. One wasn't interested in the service. He's a dynamic Dodger, very aggressive, puts himself in some bad positions, but those bad positions, a lot of the times they work out in his favor. And Connor Davies, he's been as good a shooter as college lacrosse has seen in a long time. He reminds me a lot of Ryan Brown from Hopkins in the mid-2000s, where he can stretch you. He's also good off contact and upgrading his dodges off of a pass. And he's got a great release. He puts the ball to spots, he gets it off quick, and he shoots it with range. our guys are excited to play against him, because he's a competitor. But they also have a few other guys. Their midfield is excellent. Connor Murphy, the kid from St. Mary's, when he's healthy, he's as tough as a cover as there is in our league. He's extremely quick, plays really hard, creative, fearless. They've got a really dynamic offense, top to bottom.
One random question that I was thinking, we've played quite a few night games. Is there, does Dan Daly see the ball any differently when you're under the lights? And do you prepare any different for a night game?
No, we've practiced at night before. I don't think it's an issue. I actually think our guys prefer playing at night. Um, I know aside from the build up during the day of game day, I prefer playing at night. But it's never crossed my mind that is an issue from a negative standpoint for us. Dan's never mentioned it, and I would have to really analyze that from a statistic standpoint to see if it's made a difference.
Sure. I'm guessing it's no different than playing in a really bright day where, the sun's shining pretty good and there's no cloud cover. So it's probably the same for all the players out there. Just curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Wags.
Well, I definitely think that he lost the ball in the lights at least one time on Friday night. It was obvious to me that he did not see the ball, and they had an odd glare at Ridley. That light. I thought those lights were difficult for the players.
Yeah, certainly, and Jack Flaherty in the clear lost one in the lights at
That's
a
right.
critical moment. But again, they had to play with that too, and I know it's their home field, but the lights are either going to be in your eyes or they're not, regardless if you're used to playing there or it's your first time. We've had success at night there with similar, environment in terms of time of day, time of year. There was a weird aroma at Ridley that night. I don't know if the home team benefited from that or not, but I don't really think it had a major impact on the way the game was played.
So looking at this situation, Friday, possibly Tuesday, you've been in that situation before. You succeeded last year in that situation, but what is the approach? Do you do any advanced scouting on who you might play on Tuesday for preparation purposes, or do you just say, you know what, it's all in on Bucknell, and Saturday morning I'll get up at 4 in the morning if I have to start preparing for whoever that is on Tuesday?
Yeah, it is absolutely all about Bucknell. It hasn't truly. I haven't even looked at the scenarios too closely to really consider what happens if we do win, and the other things that we need to happen. I truly don't care who we would play. I want to have a great experience on Friday night and leave the field satisfied that we did everything we could. And then we'll circle the wagons, right after that if we're given that opportunity. And the reality is, we know each other so well in this league, that it's the scouting is going to be fairly simple in the sense that it's not like you're going to have to spend an enormous amount of time trying to figure out what you're going to have to do for each opponent. We've watched each other and played each other and watched each other so much through this season and the past few years that you can throw out any team and I could probably give you a basic game plan without, truly analyzing it. So I think we have enough time to get prepared if that situation does arise. But really, it is all in on trying to put our best foot forward against Bucknell.
So, Stacy, just for my edification, and I read Scott's email, which then was corrected after you added to the scenarios, and I just started getting massive headache trying to figure out all the scenarios. Is the bottom line is, can Navy have a home game on Tuesday night?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. Right
Okay.
now, we have 3 opportunities to play at Colgate, 2 at Lafayette, and 1 at Lehigh,
Okay.
as
So do
far
you
No
as
want,
we can
opportunity to
tell.
play at Bucknell on Friday.
Yes.
right? Well, I was going to say, I mean, I'll just last question for me. I mean, you obviously could get in with a loss, but that is no way to go into the Patriot League tournament. You've got to win Friday and get some momentum and confidence, et cetera, right?
I don't think we can get in with a loss. That's the way I
Why
look
not?
at it.
Oh, I thought if Army, oh, right, because Loyola has the right.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, it's all in.
It's a playoff game. It's game 7 for us. We're in that moment. It's we thought it was game 7 last week. Our guys didn't respond. It is game 7 for us on Friday night.
Okay. I know we're running a little short, but I mean, should I talk to Joe now about Jacob Darrow or should I talk to
We could
him?
do it now.
Fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
All
fine.
right, well, let's go back to the beginning of, I mean, your recruitment of Jacob, and I've got to go back and try to review, and I'm going to talk to Joe Christie from Severn, but I don't remember Jacob being a big time first team all county pick for the Cap. I know he wasn't first team all county because I pick it, but I know he was a good player and Severn's a good program. But what was your expectations of Jacob? What did you like about him coming out of Severn School?
Eddie McKinnon deserves a lot of credit for Jacob Darrow. I got to know Eddie. Certainly, I played against him, and I got to know him pretty well when I got here. Um, because of his support of this program, and he turned me on to him. He turned me on to Jacob because he had coached him in the summertime, and he just spoke of his character and the human being he was. And he forced me, truthfully, to look at him more as a player. When I first watched him, I wasn't blown away with him athletically, but then as I got to really study his game, I saw the intangible things that I think we see this year and through his career, where he's a really smart lacrosse player. He is good at what he can be good at. He's got a great stick and he understands how to play within a team concept. And my expectations for him were, maybe this kid plays man down for us at some point. Maybe a fourth, fifth, kind of sixth utility defenseman, just because of his athletic ability. I thought that there were going to be some better athletes that we were going to be able to recruit. But as we started to go through this, we realized that where he's deficient athletically relative to some of his teammates, he is so far beyond those guys and a lot of guys I've coached in terms of his lacrosse IQ. And that makes a huge difference in the Division 1 level. The ability to play with a headiness, a calmness, a confidence, and within yourself so that you don't put yourself in tough positions is as big of a skill as being big, fast, and strong. And I think that's where he's excellent. And he's proven that he can survive and thrive at this level, even if he's not the fastest or biggest kid on the field.
So Jacob did not play much, as a freshman or sophomore, and that's not to be unexpected. That happens a lot. Last year, as a junior, he did start earning more playing time. Can you talk about his role and what he did? And did you start to develop more and more confidence in him as he played that role last season?
Yeah, I mean, it started really with him on the scout team, and he was so good on wings of faceoffs with his stick and ability to find the ball. Again, even going against guys who are faster than him, he always had a knack to just time it and read the situation and put himself in position to make a play. So we started giving him that opportunity to go on the wings, and that transitioned into, you know what? He's probably going to be pretty good if we put him in the box defensively. So we made him our second long stick midi. He got exposed a little bit with some stronger, faster athletes in that space up top. But as you know, not many people are dodging the long poles. Everyone's attacking short sticks. So we thought we could hide him enough defensively, and we did. But then as this season came to fruition, missing two seniors from last year in Jackson Bonnets and Nick Lacalzi, we felt like we needed a little bit more leadership and steadiness and calmness down there to really protect guys like AJ Marsh and not put so much on their plate from a team defensive standpoint. And he emerged. He just emerged in his ability to lead and run the system. Aside from Friday night, he has been spot on with that. I think he's up there in caused turnovers on our team, and that's remarkable for that kid. And that's just lacrosse IQ. It is just lacrosse IQ. It's got nothing to do with he's a takeaway guy. He's going to come hunt you down. He's just really, really smart and has worked to understand our defense at a coach level. If John and I got thrown off the Naval Academy bridge on Friday night, then Jacob Darrow could coach the defense. That is the honest deal. He could do it. And we were close, Wax. We were close to jumping off that bridge.
You told me the story at the beginning of the year when I came to see you for the preseason preview that I don't want to say it was an accident, but it was in preseason practice. You were still using Darrow as a long pole, and something happened where he got stuck down on close defense, and you were like, it was like a lightning bulb moment. Like, whoa, he's managing that unit. Can you remind me of the story of that?
Yeah, we were watching film the next day, John and I, and analyzing the practice, and it just dawned on me so evidently that, man, our defense looks like we're in midseason form, and this guy is truly running it. He's pointing. You could see his body language is communicating. He's organizing, and there was a sense of confidence that it was visible on film to us. I've had two of those moments here. One was with Jackson Peters when he got stuck on the defensive end when he was playing offense for us in a scrimmage at the stadium. And he played such good defense. The next day I brought him into the office and I told him he was going to be a short stick D midi. It broke his heart. I tested his commitment, and he certainly took that to heart. And he became one of the best short sticks that we've had here in the last certainly 6 years. And Jacob Darrow was a similar situation. We had absolutely no intention of making him a close defenseman, but we felt like we were in search of some kind of glueness down low, and he did that, and we probably should have noticed it a little bit earlier, but that was the moment for us. It was probably, gosh, the second week of practice, cold January, and he's in full sweats, a turtleneck and a scarf, and he's running the defense.
So bottom line though is he is an inside guy. That's where he's best. He's not a guy you want chasing a guy out behind the cage trying to play one-on-one. That's more Ian and AJ's job, right?
Yeah, it's Ian, it's AJ, it's Bobby Kittleberger, Aiden Hurdle. Him and Jackson Roberts really are the glue to the backbone of our defense. They are the quarterbacks. They're going to go for the guy who is not the big dodging presence. And when switched on someone else, they're smart enough to not put themselves in position. Jacob got beat for a goal one-on-one last week. It's one of the first times all year he's gotten beat, and that was more lack of presence than ability, and their kid made a nice play. But again, he's so smart not to put himself in dangerous positions relative to who he is. So, yeah, I mean, every defense has one of those players, and I truly believe that they are the most important. The star players who guard people, they get all the accolades, they get all the attention, but those guys get to do what they do because of players like Jacob Darrow.
Well, last for me, and I mean, I don't think what happened Friday night happens if Ian McGollum's out there. Do you think you'll be getting him back?
I don't know yet. I truly, and that's not like lip service. I truly don't know. He's moving better. He hasn't run full speed. He hasn't been hit. He hasn't shuffled, so it's heartbreaking. It truly is, just for him. He's one of my favorite human beings. I said last night at the sports banquet, the moment I realized the impact of this institution was when I offered that kid an opportunity to attend here, and he sobbed on the phone, and if you watch the Under the Army game, as heartbroken as everybody who played in that game was, he's singing the blue and gold with tears in his eyes. And it's heartbreaking that he can't be out there win or lose for us, because he is that big presence. But that's just the way that things go. It's been one of those years, and a lot of coaches and teams are up against it with the injuries. It's been a tough year for us in that regard, but that's not the reason why we lost on Friday. The reason why we lost is because the Navy players that showed up didn't show up.
All right, thanks, Joe.
All right, buddy.
Got anything else from you?
I'm all set. Good luck, Coach.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you both. All right.
Thank you, Coach.
Take care.